Welcome back. I'm joined by Peter Roff, contributing editor for NewsWeek Magazine, as we unpack the recent U.S. presidential election results. Was it a surprise for you? Was it a surprise for that Donald Trump won? Maybe you thought Kamala Harris would win. Well, again, Peter is going to unpack a lot of these details. So when we talk, Peter, about some of the pitfalls of Kamala Harris's campaign, definitely communications was one of them. I'm glad you highlighted a few times when she said she basically didn't have any policy changes different than her previous administration. What were some of the other factors that went? And you mentioned the media and some of the left-wing elites who maybe overplayed their hand. You said it turned off the voters?
Oh, I think they absolutely overplayed their hand. The whining and complaining after the Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post refused to endorse a candidate in the race. Endorsements usually don't matter. This time it did, because as bad as the mainstream media portrayed Trump, these two important papers, important to liberals anyway, still couldn't find a reason to say vote for Harris. That sends a big signal. But I think that the broad swath of what we call flyover land, the part of America that exists between the West Coast and the East Coast, really felt like giving a zotz to the elites who were just so over the top. You saw it Saturday night on Saturday Night Live, which I think is an excellent political barometer for where the left is. The opening sketch after the election, the cold open, they call it, had a bunch of cast members swearing allegiance and fidelity to Trump. It was over the top by leaps and bounds. But the point is that Trump had been so criticized by SNL in the past season and in the election, and now they're coming out pretending that they were with him all the time, because, of course, the elites believe that Donald Trump's going to oppose a police state. And that's just nonsense. There are too many separations of power and too many checks and balances in America for any president to impose a police state. It's just nonsensical. But this is what the left believes. And this is what they told America. And America said, oh, come on.
Now, when we look at the flyover part of America, as you mentioned, that is considered that, that's where the average American voter resides. And, they're faced with a lot of issues. We've heard, crime, immigration, a lot of these kinds of issues really percolated during the election. Why would an issue like that resonate more with your average American voter than, say, those on the East or West Coast?
I'm not sure it's East and West Coast. I think it's elites versus the average working American. The average working American doesn't have the money to avoid the impact of Bidenflation. Okay, the inflation rate is down. Prices are still way up. That hurts working class voters. That hurts middle class voters. That doesn't hurt rich people. They just spend more money. Nothing wrong with that, not a criticism, but they're insulated from the main complaint. They can live in gated communities where they're insulated from the crime problem. And they don't have to deal with immigration because the illegals are not being resettled in hotels and other facilities in their neighborhoods. Trump's vote was up in New York City. Harris's vote was down. Why? Because New York City has, for the last 2.5 years, been taxed by the number of people who were arrested at the border between the United States and Mexico, who have been temporarily settled in New York City, displacing veterans and other domestic poor in residential hotels and other facilities. They've brought crime, they've brought garbage. It's very real for them now. It's not imaginary.
Right.
They voted like it wasn't imaginary.
And when, of course, your dollar is being stretched so thinly, is being stretched very to the brink. A lot of families are on the breaking point of poverty line now with inflation. To see perhaps immigrants, or illegal immigrants maybe getting something for free. I don't know. That might have also irritated the average American voter.
I think that's very astute. Even the perception, even if it's not happening,
Right.
the perception that they are generates resentment.
And it sounds like there was a lot of that. We're going to unpack more of this and go through a little bit more of the results when we return from this commercial break. Please stick around.